Hello, fifth grade teachers. At this point, you should have received in your mailbox a copy of the new informational unit. In the packet that was sent to you also was a letter from Amy Siracusano letting you know about the unit and when to expect the next set of language lessons. Today, I want to take a couple of minutes to go through the documents that were sent to you and give you an overview of the revised unit. So you should have received this document, Welcome to Word. It is in Schoology. It was developed by Sheila Gearhart, and it has a lot of features on teaching students how to use the features of Word. There are videos here that you can see. There are screenshots of how to save documents, how to create visuals, how to use different fonts, etc. Please take a look at that. It is on Schoology as its own document, so you can push it out to students. And this is great as students go to work in informational writing. They can add bold text features to have the reader pay attention to things or italicize words and phrases, etc. So just know that that is there for you and for your students. The second document that I want to show you is the actual informative unit. So there are some changes on the front cover. We've highlighted some of the standards in that document. We're focusing on students understanding how to use facts, details, definitions, quotes within a section of informational text and to know how to apply that understanding to writing informational pieces. So that's really where we're focusing this time. We're also looking at how to use text features to help the reader not only locate information, but also to aid in comprehension. So to make that distinction for students. If we move over to page 7, I think it is, this is going to be new for you. So on page 7, what we've done is we've tried to link up the reading informational standards with the writing standards. So we can see a direct connection to what we're teaching in our read alouds to what students will apply in their informational writing pieces that they develop. You can see here where we talk about in writing using precise language and domain-specific vocabulary. That directly ties to Reading Informational 5.4. It's a very similar standard, and it is something that we want students at this point to really be paying attention to. The one piece that is going to be not new for fifth graders, they start learning about it in fourth grade, is this idea of creating quotations. So direct citations from the text. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's move on over to the table of contents. You can see here that we have 3 lessons that they'll start with. This is to help you front load information for your students before they actually start their own research, which starts in lesson 4. There is a stop and read page on 25 and 26. We want to really pay attention to that. So let's go ahead and take a look so we can highlight some of those pieces. Also, you might want to take a look about this word essay. Many teachers have been concerned about the use of the word essay on PARC, and we don't use it in any of our materials. Essay just means to write a piece of intellectual writing. So basically, it's writing your thoughts on paper. So just explain that to students. A lot of these terms are semantics. Different words are used in different content areas and different subjects. They mean the same thing, so we want to teach kids that those are really synonyms. So the first lesson I'll start out with, it's very similar to last year, Understanding Characteristics of Informational Writing. We're going to use the article Big Talkers again from the Comprehension Toolkit. There are other articles here that you can make copies of or just show them the different types of leads. And these are ways to start your piece of writing. The word lead is used here to introduce the reader to the piece, but really you'll see further in the unit that it is called an introduction. So make sure you make that distinction for students. Again, this is semantics. Lead is really used in narrative writing, but introduction is used in informational writing. So just teach kids that these words are synonymous. It's just a different term in informational writing, but it's the way you lead your reader into your writing. We have a list of text features that you might want to point out to students, and we have a page, a few pages after this lesson that will be available for you to either push out to students or to copy for them so that they will have a copy of different types of text features. Remember, there's a distinction between something like a table of contents that helps a reader locate information versus things like a pie graph or a map, which really aids the reader in comprehending the words on the page. The next lesson goes around generating information around a topic to understand text structures. So here what we want students is and teachers is to directly tie this lesson to colonial regions from your social studies units. We have created 3 categories here. And basically what your students are going to do is they're going to do a brain dump of facts and details to come underneath these 3 categories. And what the teacher will model is based on one of the categories, and depending on what your students provide you with facts and details, you'll decide on a specific type of text structure, and you will kind of model putting those facts and details into a short paragraph. So if they only give you one region, you'll just write one description. If they give you 2, you might do a compare-contrast type structure. After you do this for your students, you'll take the middle column and the students can work on a text structure together in a group. And with the last column, they can go ahead and do it independently. And this way you can see how the students are taking the facts and details that have been provided to them and writing them in different types of text structure. So that is a new lesson to help students as they go to research on their own. There's a text structure chart on page 19. This should be familiar to you as it was given out at PD in September and October of this year. Lesson 3 on page 20 is brand new as well. This has a lot to do with paraphrasing facts and details from the text. Very important skill as students move into middle school, working on their history fair projects and other types of research as they move up in the grade levels. Again, this is based on the article Big Talkers from the source book from the Comprehension Toolkit. So you could use that a second time here. What we did for you is if you'll turn over to page 23, this is for the teacher. We've retyped a section of this article, and what we do is down here in the steps, I'm going to walk you through it. We have students underline domain-specific vocabulary, phrases, keywords, and then students will basically share why they underlined what they did. Once they do that, they'll take their ideas and kind of synthesize them a little bit into bulleted phrases, not sentences. And you can model this for students, and then they can go ahead and do a different section of that Big Talkers article. Once they have their notes on the right, they will work on writing a sentence or 2, kind of putting that information together in their own words, using those keywords and phrases. So there's a sample here, and if you turn over to page 24, you can see there's a blank so that the student can kind of follow along how you're modeling this. Again, once you have that article copied, students can go ahead and do another section. You see the stop page on page 25. This basically reiterates that we've kind of front-loaded some information for students, and the next cycle of lessons will focus on teaching students how to collect, organize, write an introduction, concluding statement or section, how and when to use text features, either to help the reader locate information or aid in comprehension, how to cite text evidence, and how to group that information using headings and linking words. You will have the option as a teacher to go two ways, either work toward a social studies topic or a science topic. So focus either on the American Revolution or oysters. These are the topics that the students can choose from, and that's how you'll group your students. So you won't have 20 or 25 different topics going on. You will have 4 topics going on or 5 topics going on, and the students will be grouped so that they can work together to research. I suggest that you choose one of the topics to model for the students through this entire process. And if you have students that really are going to struggle with the organization of this, keep those students with you through the modeling process. You have a lot of options for products that you might want your students to produce. If you feel comfortable giving them kind of open-ended choice, that's up to you. Or if you'd rather give them a choice of 2 different types of products, You have to do what is going to work for your students and your class. Note that school librarians teach students how to create a source list. It's in their 4th and 5th grade standards. So please speak to them about how they teach them to cite information and how to create source lists. We know that on PARCC and in the standards that students in 5th grade are supposed to be able to synthesize information from 3 texts, that being video or text in front of them, print text. So I would recommend not allowing students to have any more than 3 sources through this process, just to help with managerial pieces. All right, the next lesson goes into collecting, organizing, and citing research. This starts on page 27. And what we really want students to do is, again, have those categories. So this is a sample of a file folder. If you want, basically what students would do is have an index card with the title of their source and a page number if applicable, and either they'd have their paraphrase notes or direct quote or bulleted items or facts and details based on a particular category from the topic that they're writing from. So each card would go either into an envelope or a library pocket card, and these would be their paragraphs. These would be their sections of their informational text. The other way that you could do this is to do boxes and bullets. So the main idea goes in the first box, and your bullets are your details, and those follow to support that main idea. And that can be done in the different categories as well. This is really just different options, different graphic organizers to help students organize and gather their information. But these samples here are for you, and just model the way that you want them to do it. Okay, the next lesson that follows is, well, we have an anchor chart of ideas for citing text evidence. So on page 32, the hardest thing for students is to really have those sentence starters to introduce what it is they're citing. And this is really good for students to learn as they move into middle school and high school when they have to write document-based questions in social studies. So please do not feel like you need to teach them all of these sentence starters. Pick 2 or 3 that you think will work best and model to show them how you will cite text evidence using one of these sentence starters. So that's for you and the students. On page 33, this is similar to last year, ways to introduce the topic. And this is your introduction, what we call the lead in narrative, but we really want to focus on them writing an introduction type lead. So there are different examples in here that you can use, very similar to last year. Also includes the information on citing a direct quote from a text if they want to start that way. And we have that lesson in the language lessons. In your language unit on page 72 to 73 is the mentor sentence template. The lesson starts on page 68. So you can refer to that as well to support them. Page 38 has to do with revision and varying sentence beginnings. So in narrative, we call it transition words. In informational, we call it linking words and phrases. So just note that difference. Again, it's semantics. Depending on the type of text structure, that will really dictate the types of words that you use to lead the sentences. So as you model for students, that should come together nicely. Finally, the next lesson that we have is writing a concluding statement or section. We don't call it an ending in informational writing, although again, make that connection for students. So there are different examples of different ways you can end your piece of informational text. We go into editing in lesson 8 on page 46. The next lesson is publishing that follows. And finally, I want to draw your attention to the very end of the unit. We have many checklists for students to use, for teachers to model with. But starting on page 57 and 58, we have a sample scoring tool. Please change any of these items that you want, any of these scoring items, the total point values. This is modeled directly from the standards, but make those adjustments based on the students that you work with. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know at the Board of Ed. This unit has been loaded into Schoology, and we hope that this introduction